We are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, opposed to secret oaths, opposed to secret proceedings, secret proceedings. No official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
All right. Welcome to Conspiracy Corner Podcast, everyone. This is Abe, your host. Happy Halloween. I actually recorded this episode yesterday, but I'm not very tech savvy and couldn't figure out really how to hook up the podcast mic. My wife, she's smarter than me when it comes to technical stuff. She does most of the technical stuff. She used to back before she started teaching me how to. I'm a slow learner. So sadly, the audio turned out horrible. So I wasted like an hour of my life yesterday. But I did get a podcast out to you all yesterday. So I go through spurts. Sometimes I just put out podcasts back to back, you know. I was going to put 2 out yesterday, but I only ended up putting out 1. So I'm going to redo this one. Happy Halloween. It is a true crime one. We are doing part 2 on Madeleine Smith. As far as an update, work was pretty good. The new guy came in sober. He came in an hour late, but they didn't fire him. If you didn't hear about that, you can just listen to the last episode. It was pretty fucking crazy, everything that happened. But yeah, I might be doing a recap on the whole last episode. There's more to the story that I didn't realize. And with my phone, it only records about 30 minutes, 31 minutes and something seconds. So I didn't really get to actually finish completely what I was saying. Yeah, there's more to the story. The story's actually building up a little more. Just YouTube drama within the truth community, and I put in my 2 cents. And now that I've found out some more stuff, I'm going to probably do another episode on that, on just what's going on with those channels and all that jazz. And I know some people might be like, oh, that's tacky, you know, but that's what I report on. I report on conspiracies, obviously, because this is Conspiracy Corner Podcast. And when other channels in the genre of conspiracy are duking it out, you know, I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna report on it. That's my job, dude. But yeah, let's get into the episode. Now, just a little recap from last episode. It was basically kind of pretty much the origin story of Madeleine Smith and her romance with Emile, Frenchman, Emile L'Anglier. And basically, it was just kind of just telling their whole love story, and we left on a cliffhanger of a new man stepping into the picture. So this episode, it kind of gets into a love triangle that turns sour, and yeah, murder comes into play. Emile must have heard that a possible rival was looming on the horizon, for in mid-June Madeleine writes, reassuringly, "Don't fear me, I shall be thine. Don't give ear to any reports you may hear. There are several I hear going about regarding me, going to get married. Regard them not." She follows this with the first subtle reference to William. I have never given this Mr. M, which is Minnock, any encouragement, having a great dislike of him. Emile had obviously taken her to task, for she feels the need to explain, quote, I have never been seen on the road with an unmarried man. That is the truth. But I don't expect you will believe it. But it is quite true. It is not quite fair to be so cold and angry with me. Gradually, William's name enters her letters more boldly. I told Papa tonight nothing would ever make me like Mr. Minnock, but he was so pleasant that he raised himself in my estimation. And again, Minnock was never so pleasant as he has been this last visit. He was very nice indeed. Madeleine was playing a very dangerous game, prompting Emile to be jealous of a man accepted by her family and who could meet and talk with her with their approval, while he was rejected and left out in the cold. To make matters worse, in November, the Smith family moved to a new house on Blithwood 7 Square, an imposing residence on the corner of the square and Main Street, in which William Minnock had an apartment on the third floor. Madeleine explains, he will often come on an evening because both Mama and Papa asked him to come downstairs to us whenever he pleased. Can I help this? It would look strange indeed if I were to leave the room when he came in. Emile had almost moved a few months earlier, when he had taken lodgings at 11 Franklin Place. His new landlady, Mrs. Ann Jenkins, like all her predecessors in Emile's life, proved to be a homely woman who took to him at once. Now that the Smiths were installed at Blithwood Square, Madeleine was but half a mile away. Mr. Smith, by his change in residence, had unwittingly placed his daughter nearer the suitor he wished to discourage, and his choice of the bedrooms was no less disastrous. He gave Madeleine a bedroom beneath the dining room, and on the floor, which was below street level. It had 2 windows, both barred, looking out on Main Street, and was adjacent to the side door of the house with which William Minnock had access to his upper apartment. She was expected to share this room with her younger sister Janet, although this arrangement did not immediately meet with her approval. Madeleine was quick to realize that it offered chances for secret meetings, especially since there was a passage outside her room which led past Christina Haggart's quarters to a servant's door at the rear end of the house. There were great possibilities for intrigue, and Madeleine made use of them. Again the tempo increases. With renewed fervor, she instructs Emile regarding the posting of the letters. He is to walk past her room and drop his notes down to her through the window bars between 7 and 8 p.m. She thought of everything. Quote, Sweet love, you should get those brown envelopes. They would not be seen as much as the white ones. Put down into my window. You should just stoop down to tie your shoe and then slip it in. In this letter she also mentions William Minnock, but goes on, What would I not give to place my hand on your breast, kiss and fondle you, and that I am sure you would kindly love me. But some night, I hope soon, we may enjoy each other. As Christmas approached, Madeleine's letters became unashamedly filled with sentiments of love. Their marriage and a honeymoon filled with nights of love. These letters were written late at night in the candlelit privacy of her in the candlelit privacy of her bedroom, with only the quiet breathing of her sleeping sister to interrupt her romantic expression. At midnight on January 16th, she writes, I am thy own wife, a fond dear embrace, kisses and much, much sweet love, a fond embrace. Your fond loving wife, your own dear fond Mimi L'Angliere. She made elaborate plans to let Emile secretly into the house late at night when the family were asleep, with the connivance of her maid, doors were opened, and the lovers would embrace and talk in whispers. If Janet was soundly asleep, they could sneak into the bedroom for their petting. Sorry. Or else do so in the rear passage of the house. Ha ha, in the rear passage. One of Madeleine's letters that autumn had carried the admission, quote, I do feel so ashamed after you left and having allowed you to see any name you please to insert. But as you said at the time, I was your wife. Perhaps Emile was allowed to glimpse the gates of paradise occasionally, but whatever transports of delight they may have engaged in, the risk of being found in flagrante were enormous. Certainly Madeleine may only have been clad in her nightdress, which would have facilitated sexual intercourse. After one such nocturnal encounter, on January 18th, 1857, Madeleine wrote, Emile, my own beloved, you have just left me. Oh, sweet darling! At this moment my heart and soul burns with love for thee, my husband, my own sweet one. Emile, what would I not give, at this moment, to be your fond wife? My nightdress was on when you saw me. Would to God you had been in the same attire. We would be happy. Emile, I adore you. I love you with all my heart and soul. This perhaps marked the height of their passion, for the risk-taking and futility of their position was increasingly obvious. Moreover, whatever Madeleine's true feelings towards Emile, there is no doubting her powerful lust, and it must have occurred to her that an easier path to fulfillment lay with William Minnock. She had certainly not discouraged his gentlemanly overtures, and William, encouraged by both Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and brother Jack, pressed his suit. Anticipating the inevitable, Madeleine now gives voice to defeat. Quote, I weep now, Emile, to think of our fate. Shortly after writing this on February 28, 1857, though still emotionally engaged to Emile, Madeleine accepts William Minnock as her fiancé. So yeah, that's not going to turn out good. There is family rejoicing, but at her request, no public announcement. Her plan is to cool the correspondence, but not to tell Emile outright what had happened, although she dropped several hints. Quote, Now I must tell you something you may hear. I was at the theater, and people, my love, may tell you that Minnock was there too. Well, love, he was there, today. When Bessie, Mama, and I were walking, Minnock joined us, took a walk with us, and came home. He was the most civil and kind. The references to William and the generally cool tone brought unexpectedly dramatic results. Emile returned one of her letters. Madeleine replied, I felt truly astonished to have my last letter returned to me, but it will be the last you shall have an opportunity of returning to me. When you are not pleased with the letters I send you, then our correspondence shall be at an end, and as there is coolness on both sides of our engagement, had better be broken. This may astonish you, but you have more than once returned me my letters, and my mind was made up that I should not stand the same thing again. And you also annoyed me much on Saturday by your conduct in coming so near me. Altogether, I think, owing to coolness and indifference, nothing else, that we had better, for the future, consider ourselves as strangers. I trust to your honor as a gentleman that you will not reveal anything that may have passed between us. I shall feel obliged by your bring me my letters and likeness on Thursday evening at 7. Be at the area gate, and C.H. will take the parcel from you. On Friday night I shall send you all your letters, likeness, and I trust you may yet be happy and get one more worthy of you than I. On Thursday at 7 o'clock I am. Having dismissed Emile and given him final instructions, Madeleine had some afterthoughts which she included in a long postscript. My love for you has ceased, she informs him. And that is why I was cool. I did once love you truly, fondly, but for some time back I have lost much of that love. It has cost me much to tell you this, sleepless nights, but it is necessary you should know. She concludes by mentioning again her faith in his honor as a gentleman, and bids him adieu. Emile was completely astonished at receiving his marching orders, and with Madeleine's letter in his hand, tearfully told one of his friends at Huggins what had happened. He was advised to give up the letters and terminate the whole affair, but Emile said, quote, "She shall never marry another man as long as I live," adding with prophetic insight, "She shall be the death of me." He chose to do nothing immediately, and when he failed to appear with the letters as instructed, Madeleine fired off a reminder. Quote, "I attribute it to your having cold that I had no answer to my last note. On Thursday evening you were, I suppose, afraid of the night air. I fear your cold is not better. I again appoint Thursday night, first, same place, street, gate, 7 o'clock. Madeleine." This time Emile was goaded into replying. He refused to return her letters, but threatened instead to send them to her father. Madeleine's reply, written on the same day, posted in an envelope marked "immediately," was so full of desperation and self-pity to add yet another dimension to this extraordinary correspondence. She realized now what she had failed to understand when she was so imperiously dismissed Emile. Her letters gave him complete mastery. In a long letter written on February 10th, she grovelled, "Emile, for the love you once had for me, do nothing till I see you. For God's sake, do not bring your once loved Mimi to an open shame. Emile, I have deceived you. I have deceived my mother. Oh, Emile, be not harsh to me. I am the most guilty, miserable wretch on the face of the earth. Emile, do not drive me to death. Emile, for God's sake, do not send my letters to my papa. It will be an open rupture. I will leave the house. I will die. Emile, do nothing till I see you. Pray for me, for a guilty wretch. But do nothing. 10 o'clock tomorrow night, one line. For the love of God, I am ill. God knows what I have suffered. My punishment is more than I can bear. Do nothing till I see you. For the love of heaven, do nothing. I am mad. I am ill." Emile did not reply, and was rewarded with a further outburst of pleading, an expression of abject humiliation. Quote, "Emile, I have this night received your note. Oh, it is kind of you to write to me. Emile, no one can know the intense agony of my mind I have suffered last night and today. On my bended knees I write you, and ask you, as a hope for mercy at Judgment Day, do not inform on me. Do not make me a public shame. I am humble before you and crave your mercy. Oh, will you not, for Christ's sake, denounce me? I shall be undone. I shall be ruined. Pray for me as the most wretched, guilty, miserable creature on the face of the earth." Little dramatic, ain't it? Poor, vacillating Emile responded by acceding to Madeleine's request to see him, when, no doubt, she was able to impress on him the full force of her humility. Within days the correspondence had restarted, with a resumption of some of the previous endearments and discussions of trivial matters as if nothing had happened. This reconciliation was rounded off with a return to "Dearest sweet Emile," and "Much fond tender love and kisses." Madeleine's letters, though, tended to be shorter than before, possibly because her agile mind was concerned with other possibilities. During the second week of February she sent the houseboy, William Murray, on an errand to the apothecary in Sauchiehall Street. She gave him a note with a request written on it, a small phial of prussic acid. Now, I don't know what prussic acid, but you'll see how it comes into play. The druggist refused to serve the boy, who reported his failure to Miss Smith. She told him, "Very well, never mind," adding that she wanted it for her hands. It is possible that Madeleine was trying to lay in some poison to use on herself if Emile exposed their liaison to her father. There is a hint of possible suicide in one of her apologia when she tells Emile, "I have been ill, very ill, all day. I had to resort to what I should not have taken, but my brain is on fire. I feel as if death would be indeed sweet." What is certain is that her lover was taken ill following a late night visit to Blitheswood Square. So this is where we get into Emile and getting sick quite often. On the evening of February 19th, Emile was asked his landlady for a key as he planned to be out late. The following morning, when Mrs. Jenkins knocked on his door at about 8 a.m., she could not get a reply at first. When she tried again, Emile asked her to come in, and she found him ill in bed. He told her, "I have been very unwell. Look what I have vomited," he explained. "On the road coming home I was seized with violent pains in my bowels and stomach, and when I was taking off my clothes I lay down on the carpet. I thought as if I would have died." Mrs. Jenkins said he was very thirsty and he looked yellow and dull. Yeah, the whole looking yellow, that's like jaundice. That's like liver failure shit. I actually know people who have had like liver issues, and yeah, they end up looking like a Simpson. In the afternoon, Emile went to the doctor, who prescribed laudanum, which we talked about on part 1. Laudanum is like a hallucinogenic. It's like literal poison, dude. There's a movie, Winchester, which the lead character, he's addicted to laudanum. Like, yeah, it's a crazy drug. I guess it's almost like opium, I would think. Madeleine had been out for the greater part of the evening on February 19th, in the company of William Minnock. They had been to an opera to see a performance of Lucrezia Borgia, arriving home at about 11 p.m. Emile's diary entry for that day read, "Saw Mimi a few moments, was very ill during the night." On February 20th, Emile was well enough to see Madeleine again, and his diary records the visit. Quote, "Passed 2 pleasant hours with Madeleine in the drawing room. What occurred between them is not known, but the meeting must have been without argument if Emile described it as, quote, pleasant. Following day, Madeleine and Emile went shopping separately. She to Saatchi Hall Street and to Murdoch Brothers, druggist, where she bought 6 pennyworth of arsenic charged to her father's account. So there you go. There's a paper trail. As required by law, the purchase was recorded in the shop's poison books, and its intended use noted as for garden and country house. He visited his butcher and bought a large piece of beef, which, together with some fresh herrings, provided the fare for his dinner that evening. Man, every time I hear herrings, I always think of like, what was it, Monty Python and the Holy Grail? It's something about, you must chop down a tree with a herring. Something crazy like that. It's a fish, basically. So, essentially, the dude was getting surf and turf. For one only recently ill, he ate such large quantities as this meal as to alarm motherly Mrs. Jenkins. Jenkins, man, that's like William's bloodline. We're tied in with Jenkins. I wonder if that would be crazy if I was actually related, man. We have my great grandma is a Jenkins. Further alarm was to follow, and again Emile's diary records the event. On Sunday the 22nd of February, he noted down, "Saw Mimi in a drawing room, promised me French Bible, taken very ill." Man, Mimi, man. That's another one. Mimi's, man. You gotta look out for Mimi's. I've never heard nothing good about Mimi's, man. I seen like Rent, and I remember she was trouble too. If you ever seen that movie. Early on Monday morning, he called Mrs. Jenkins, who said he was vomiting. It was the same kind of stuff as before, in color and otherwise. He complained of the same pain in the bowels and stomach, and of thirst. He was very cold. Dr. Hugh Thompson, Emile's own doctor, was called and took his complaint to be bilious derangement. Emile was away for a week, and on hearing of this illness, Madeleine wrote him a felicitous little note. Dearest sweet Emile, I am sorry to hear that you are ill. I hope to God you will soon be better. Take care of yourself. Do not go to the office this week. Ever with love, your Mimi. Madeleine's letters continued to flow, but while they were modestly affectionate, they were also brief and designed to keep Emile at a distance. On February 27th, she writes, I cannot see you this week, and I can fix no time to meet you. On March 3rd, she writes, on Friday we will go to Stirling for a fortnight. I am so sorry, my dearest pet. I cannot see you ere we go, but I cannot. And on March 4th she writes, if you would take my advice, you would go to the south of England for 10 days. Go to the Isle of Wight. I am exceedingly sorry, love, I cannot see you ere I go. It is impossible. Emile's reply obviously required information about William Minnock, for Madeleine tells him on March 5th, quote, neither Minnock nor his sisters go with us. I have only been in Minnock's house once, and that was this week. Emile was not reassured, and on the same day wrote a long letter, the draft of which survives. In it, there are accusations and some highly pertinent questions. So yeah, this dude he should honestly, man, just run. He begins, my dear, sweet pet Mimi, I feel indeed very vexed at the answer I received. Yesterday to mine of Tuesday to you should prevent me from sending the kind letter I had ready for you. You must not blame me, dear, for this. But really your cold, indifferent, and reserved notes, so short without a particle of love in them, especially after pledging your word you were to write me kindly for those letters you asked me to destroy, and the manner you evaded answering the questions I put to you. Then came the accusations. The reports I hear fully convince me, Mimi, that there is foundation in your marriage with another. You often go to Mr. Minnock's house, and common sense would lead anyone to believe that if you were not on the footing reports say you are, you would avoid going near any of his friends. I know he goes with you, or at least meets you in Stirlingshire. And then the questions. Mimi, I insist on having an explicit answer to the questions you evaded in my last. If you evade answering them this time, I must try some other means of coming to the truth. Who gave you the trinket you showed me? Is it true it was Mr. Minnock? And is it true that you are, directly or indirectly, engaged to Mr. Minnock, or to anyone else but me? These questions I must know. May God bless you, pet. And with many fond and tender embraces, believe me, with kind love, your ever after husband, Emile L'Anglier. Madeleine received this letter the next morning, on the day of her departure to Bridge of Allan, with her family. A friend from her school days in London called to see her, and the two young women walked together in Sachi Hall Street, as Madeleine said she wanted to do some shopping. One of the shops she went into was John Curry, the chemist. Still accompanied by her friend, Madeleine asked the assistant for 6 penny worth of arsenic. Asked what she wanted it for, Madeleine replied it was for killing rats. An entry was made in the poisons book. March 6, Miss Smith, 7 Blithsworth Square, arsenic, 1 ounce, kill rats. There you go, paper trail again. The record was signed by the chemist's assistant and by M.H. Smith. In the afternoon, Madeleine left for Bridge of Allan, where on the 10th of March she wrote to Emile, my own best loved pet, I hope you are well. I am very well, but it is such a cold place. You must try and keep well for my sake, will you? My own dear little Emile, you love me, do you not? Yes, Emile, I know you. Kiss me, sweet one, my love. My own dear sweet little pet. Man, it's a wicked bitch, dude. 2 days later, William Minnock visited her and made a formal request for her hand in marriage. She accepted. The couple agreed to make a formal announcement in the newspapers on 26th of March. The day following William's visit, Madeleine wrote to her dearest and beloved, Emile, offering him a fond, tender embrace. I am ever yours, Mimi. Then within days she writes to my dearest William, my only consolation is that we meet soon. My aim through life shall be to please you and to study you. Accept my warmest, kindest love, and ever believe me to be yours with affection, Madeleine. So she's two-timing, man. She's playing both of these dudes. March 9th, Miss Perry played the patient listener as Emile poured out his troubles to her. His anxieties were mostly over his relationship with Madeleine. He told her, "It is perfect fascination, my attachment to that girl. If she were to poison me, I would forgive her." There's some foreshadowing. Miss Perry advised him against such thoughts, but he said, "Perhaps she might not be sorry to get rid of me." Always obsessed with his health, Emile told her that Madeleine had been in a habit of giving him drinks of cocoa and coffee when he visited, but recently these drinks made him feel ill. Poor Emile, still fascinated by Madeleine, but not knowing how to resolve his predicament, wallowed in self-pity and indecision, which was worsened by a lapse in her letter writing. The lady in question did find time for shopping, though on March 18th called in again at Mr. Curry's chemist shop, where she bought an ounce of arsenic for the purpose of killing rats. The same day she wrote a note to Emile asking him to come to see her the following evening. Having posted this invitation, she went out to a family dinner party with William Minnock. When wedding plans were high on the list of conversation topics, Emile waited throughout the following day for some word. But when the postal service brought no note of reconciliation, he packed his bags and went off on holiday to Bridge of Allan. Madeleine's letter arrived by the evening post after he had left. The letter was forwarded by a friend catching up with him at Bridge of Allan on Friday. Meanwhile, Madeleine, disappointed that Emile did not show up as requested, sent another letter to his lodgings. Why, my beloved, did you not come to me? Oh, beloved, are you ill? Come to me, my sweet one. I waited and waited for you, but you came not. I shall wait again tomorrow night, same hour, an arrangement. Do come, sweet love, my own dear, dear love of a sweetheart. Come, beloved, and clasp me to your heart. Come, and we shall be happy. A kiss, fond love. Adieu. With tender embraces ever, believe me to be your own, ever dear, fond Mimi. Ugh, makes me sick. Again, the letter was dully forwarded to Emile at Bridge of Allan, where he picked it up from the post office on Sunday morning, March 22nd. He realized at once that Sunday was the quote-unquote tomorrow referred to in the letter, and he hastily arranged to return to Glasgow. He caught the 3:30 p.m. train for Stirling, and following a hearty meal of roast beef and porter at Coatbridge, arrived at Glasgow at 7:30 p.m. Mrs. Jenkins was surprised to see him, and he explained, The letter you sent brought me home. He had high tea at about 8 p.m. and asked her to give him a pass key as he was going out for the evening. He also requested an early call the next morning, as he intended returning to Bridge of Allan by the first train. Emile left his lodgings in good spirits, and Mrs. Jenkins watched him as he set off down the street. At about 2:30 a.m., the quiet Mrs. Jenkins' night was disturbed by a loud ringing on the front doorbell. She got out of bed and called out, "Who's there?" "It's me, Mrs. Jenkins," answered Emile. "Open the door." She found her lodger standing on the doorstep, doubled over with pain. "I am very bad," he said. "I am going to have another vomiting of that bile." She helped him to his room and then went to make him a cup of tea. When she returned, he was lying across the bed, half undressed, vomiting into the chamber pot. Emile was shivering, so she got him into bed and filled some hot water bottles. He said that he had been taken so ill on the road that he thought he would be unable to reach the house. Having made him more comfortable, Mrs. Jenkins returned to her own room, but was woken up at about 4 a.m. by his groaning. She wanted to fetch the doctor, but he said that it was too early. By 5 a.m., Emile was suffering diarrhea in addition to vomiting. Mrs. Jenkins hurried round to Dr. James Stephen in a nearby Stafford place, but he was ill himself and could not come. He advised her to dose the sick man with 25 drops of laudanum, give him hot water to drink, and put a mustard platter on his stomach. Man, that always cracks me up, like, looking back at, like, the medical industry in general, like, back in the day, like, yeah, just give him some hallucinogens. He'll be all right. I don't know, it's just fucking crazy. By the time she returned to the house, Emile was much worse and was vomiting every few minutes. At 7 a.m., Mrs. Jenkins went round to Dr. Stephen again, and this time he returned with her. He gave Emile morphia, which I'm guessing morphia would be like a form of morphine, probably like a early primitive form of morphine, to ease the pain and said he needed rest and quiet. So yeah, they gave him laudanum, which is a hallucinogen, and then morphine. Like, this dude should be feeling fucking good, man. After Dr. Stevens left, Emile told his landlady, "I am far worse than the doctor thinks." He asked if Miss Perry could be summoned. Mrs. Jenkins dispatched her servant girl to fetch the lady and left Emile to rest. She looked in from time to time and thought he was sleeping. When Dr. Stephen returned at about 9:30 a.m., he went into the sick room and felt Emile's pulse. There was no response. He lay dead on his bed, face to the wall, and his hands clenched. Miss Perry arrived at about 10 a.m. "Are you the intended, ma'am?" asked Mrs. Jenkins. "Oh, no, I am only a friend," replied Miss Perry, who was overwhelmed when told that Emile was dead. Miss Perry, by the way, was his old landlord. Emile had a habit of literally, for some reason, he always ended up with an old woman to be his landlord, and he ended up becoming like best friends with older women. So, almost like motherly figures. But Miss Perry was the first landlord that he became really good friends with, and then this current landlord, Mrs. Jenkins, is same type of deal. Miss Perry went at once to Blithworth Square and asked to see Mrs. Smith. She encountered Madeleine in the hall, who realized at once that the visitor was upset, but her offer of assistance was declined. Yeah, probably because she smells that you're fishy, man. Mrs. Smith appeared and ushered Miss Perry, white-faced, into the drawing-room to be told about Emile L'Anglier's death. Meanwhile, news of Emile's demise had reached Huggins, and William Stevenson, the warehouseman, went to the dead man's lodging to see what help he could give. Stevenson also conveyed the news to the office of the French consul, where the Chancellor, Auguste de Mean, Emile's closest friend, was informed. Emile Stevenson joined Dr. Stephen and Dr. Thompson at Franklin Place and took charge of the dead man's affairs. While the two doctors exchanged opinions about the probable cause of death and discussed Emile's earlier bouts of illness, he went through his friend's clothes. In a pocket he found an envelope containing a letter which began, "Why, my beloved, do you not come to me?" He also discovered Emile's memorandum book, and later, in his desk at Huggins, many more letters came to light. With Emile's body, yellowed by jaundice, laid out ready for the grave, his doctors could not account for his death. They did not immediately advocate a post-mortem, but after being pressed by Stevenson, agreed that such an examination should be carried out. So this is how they're going to find out, man. That afternoon, another visitor presented himself at Blithworth Square. Auguste de Mean spelled out to a shocked and silent Mr. Smith what he knew of Madeleine's passionate affair with the dead man. With the impending marriage between his daughter and Minnock at At the back of his mind, Mr. Smith must have been horrified to learn that a large number of compromising letters existed. Emile advised him to obtain this correspondence in order to prevent a scandal. A painful interview followed between Mr. Smith and his daughter. Madeleine was calm. She simply denied everything. There had been no illicit liaison with L'Anglière, no incriminating letters, no substance in Damien's claims. She suggested that her father was alarmed without reason. Faced with this obduracy, sorry man, I swear I can read. Mr. Smith asked Emile to return to the house. Madeleine was confronted by him in the drawing room. Her father, shaken and stern, and her mother, biting her lip and in tears, were present. The Frenchman repeated the story he had told Mr. Smith. He warned Madeleine that it was suggested Emile return to Glasgow on Sunday at her request for a meeting, and that he went back to his lodgings in the small hours of the morning, where he later died of what was thought to be poison. Emile challenged Madeleine to tell the truth. Had she been visited by Emile on Sunday night? She met the challenge with a denial. She was asked again and warned of the dangers of falsehood. I swear to you, Monsieur Emile, she said, I have not seen L'Anglière for 3 weeks. In face of Madeleine's refusal to admit any complicity, Emile left and headed for Huggins, where at Mr. Smith's request he had sought to retrieve the letters. When he reached the office, Mr. Huggins was absent, and his assistants told Emile that they were not permitted to hand the letters over without their employer's consent. All Emile could do was ask that the letters be sealed away until authority was obtained for their disposal. Naturally, their contents had been gawped at by Emile's workmates, and if suspicion had not existed previously, Emile's unsuccessful attempt at retrieval suggested there was something to hide. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, shaken to the core and verging on a collapse, retired to bed. The rest of the family were tense in the fear that a calamity was about to break over their heads. Madeleine, after advising everyone to pull themselves together, sat down to a good supper. So this bitch literally, she's just like a cold-blooded killer. Oh, that's fine. Everyone chill out. I'm just going to eat. Psycho! On the following morning, March 24th, Dr. Stephen and Dr. Thompson carried out a post-mortem examination on Emile's body at Franklin Place. They concluded that the condition of the organs justified a suspicion of death having resulted from poison, and the stomach, together with its contents, was secured in the event that an analysis might be needed. At this stage, the doctors were not prepared to state that death had been definitely caused by poisoning. They reserved that the possibility of death due to natural causes. William Stevenson at once conveyed these findings to the Procurator Fiscal in the interest of informing the authorities that a foreigner had died in the city and that his relations should be properly informed. The fiscal had been told independently by other aspects of the case and asked Stevenson to give him some of the letters. The atmosphere at Blisswood Square was tense, and in Miss Smith's case, bordering on hysterical. The family was due to attend a dinner party on the 25th of March, but Mr. Smith decided that they should withdraw from the invitation. Almost predictably, his willful daughter announced that she had every intention of going and asked William Minnock to escort her. They left the house in her father's carriage and returned late in the evening when the dutiful William escorted his fiancée to the front door. Tension turned to panic the next morning when it was realized that Madeleine was not in the house. Mimi had vanished. William Minnock now learned for the first time the full story of the cloud which hung over the Smith household. After a family conference, it was thought that Madeleine had probably decided to go to the country house at Rowe. William and Jack Smith set off to find her. The day of Madeleine's disappearance was also the day of Emile's funeral. He was buried at St. David's Church. The small group of mourners did not include his beloved Mimi, who was found by William Minnock clutching a small carpet bag on board a steamer bound for Roe. Madeleine was escorted back to Glasgow and arrived home late in the afternoon. The city was buzzing with rumor, and on Sunday the Smith family, including Madeleine, ran the gauntlet of public curiosity when they attended service as usual at the United Presbyterian Church. This is what someone's saying, man. Christians crack me up, dude. Like, your daughter is suspected of murder, caught running to a boat, gets drugged back home, and you all still make it to church on Sunday. What the hell? I'm sorry, that's just insane to me. Secure from the public gaze, the authorities had been pursuing their inquiries. Dr. Frederick Penny, professor of chemistry in the Andersonian University, had been given a sealed jar containing Emile L'Anglier's stomach. The professor found that the organ contained a quantity of arsenic. Events now gathered pace. The fiscal ordered a search of Emile's lodgings, and his desk at Huggins was taken away. On March 31st, an order was given for Emile's body to be exhumed. Specimens of various organs were taken, including the brain. A theory that L'Anglier had committed suicide gained currency at this time, and inquiries were made at various chemist shops as to whether the dead man had bought any arsenic. No trace, though, of L'Anglier's name could be found in any of the poison books, but a perusal of the pages in Mr. Curry's register revealed the name of Miss Madeleine Smith. That afternoon, Madeleine was summoned to the office of the sheriff's substitute of Lanarkshire, where she was shown 4 letters which she had written to Emile. She accepted an invitation to make a declaration and made a calm statement in the presence of her anxiety-ridden father and nervous sheriff's substitute. She said that she had been acquainted with Emile L'Anglier for the last 2 years. Quote, "He recently paid his addresses to me, and I have met him on a variety of occasions. I had not seen L'Anglier for about 3 weeks before his death. She mentioned that he had came to her bedroom window where they talked and said, he was in the habit of writing notes to me, and I was in the habit of replying to him by notes. Having identified the envelope and note she had sent him on the March 20th, she explained, I expected him to visit me on Saturday night, but he did not come and sent no notice. There was no tapping at my window on said Saturday night, or on the following night before Sunday. I went to bed on Sunday night at about 11 o'clock and remained in bed till the usual time of getting up the next morning. Madeleine referred to Emile's sickness, but I have no idea what was the cause of it, and she gave him some cocoa from her window one night. I have bought arsenic on various occasions, she said. I use it as a cosmetic, and applied it to my face, neck, and arms diluted with water. I had been advised to the use of arsenic in the way I have mentioned by a young lady, the daughter of an actress, and I had also seen the use of it recommended in the newspapers. Madeleine explained that she told the chemist she wanted the arsenic to kill rats or vermin because did not wish him to know what I was actually going to use it for a cosmetic. She identified the other letters she had sent to Emile and concluded, I never administered or caused to be administered to Mr. L'Anglier arsenic or anything injurious, and this I declare to be truth. Signed, Madeleine Smith. And that's all she wrote for part 2. She's caught. And part 3 will be the final part in this trilogy series of Madeleine Smith. We're going to be getting into basically the trials next. So I hope you all enjoyed. Hopefully this audio turns out 10 times better than the last audio. It was kind of a bummer having to redo this episode, but it tis what tis. I hope this is a good murder mystery episode for Halloween for you all. And happy Halloween. Please like, share, and subscribe. And you all have a good day.
We are, as a people, currently and historically. Opposed to secret societies. Opposed to secret oaths. Opposed to secret proceedings. Secret proceedings. No official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.